Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. So, Francesca, it is absolutely delightful to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Guy. I'm absolutely honoured to be sitting with you here today, having a good chin wag, hopefully.
That's what it is. And do you know what? When I started doing podcasting and I had my first person on, I was just so grateful that somebody was willing to come on. But now I get to approach amazing people. Not that the first one wasn't amazing, but now I get to approach amazing people and have great conversations. So we'll get stuck into that. I always start these off the same way, which is, I know who you are. Just introduce yourself. And if in reality, we laughed about this when we were talking before, but if somebody walked up to you at a social gathering and went, "What do you do?" Just, who are you? What do you do? That's a good start.
Well, as I said, Guy, that question is always one of those questions that actually does get me, and I end up sort of like trying to sneak off somewhere and avoid it because it's never that straightforward, especially when you work for yourself. So I guess, I run two small businesses, but small and mighty. We've been going for sort of 10 years. So this year is our 10-year anniversary. I started with a PR company. So service-based industry. And subsequently from that, I've developed another sort of strand and created another business called the Global Talent Network Group, which specializes in VIP, which is a very niche area in marketing. But essentially, our job is to get celebrities paired with brands and develop campaigns and work from that side of the fence. So it is very interesting. It's a very fun life. I think people looking in wonder how much work gets done. But, I'm very lucky that the marketing world, it does gel quite well with, our personal world, because we're dealing with products and brands all the time in our personal life. So, the two do go hand in hand. But it wasn't that easy to start. You know what I mean? It's definitely a hard industry to get into. But I'm very, very excited that I get to be able to still be here after 10 years because it's not easy.
I think that's interesting. There is, I want to kind of get to understand your journey to where to you being here, but also when you do start up any business, doesn't matter what it is, there's an element of hope, and there's an element of, aspiration. So to, somebody, even a simple thing like the podcast isn't my business, but somebody said, if you want to be a successful guy, just keep doing them. Yeah. Because the reality is most people will stop. And I think there is just something about the grim determination that goes with, unless you just hit the jackpot of the thing that everybody wants, which is highly unlikely. Part of it is just, an element of sheer grit, which I'm always fascinated in.
100%. And I think I've had that from a young age, to be honest. I'm quite good at getting into something and sticking with it, despite the kind of tantrums maybe along the way. It's not easy, but I definitely aren't not somebody that gives up easily. I've grown up playing, sport when you're a kid. It's all those things that you take for granted when you're younger that actually, that staying power, that willpower, that kind of get up and go. I think as well also it's the discipline. I've been used to getting up early and doing exercise or doing stuff from a young age. So for me, that discipline part's always played a very key part in who I am today and how that's evolved. But I can certainly see when I look back where that started to play its part. And they call it sort of the 10,000 hour rule, don't they? If you do something over and over again, you become an expert. And I think, when you're a child and you're growing up into sort of teenage years and early adulthood, trying to be consistent and keep some of those things going does pay off, I think, in later life, and gives you that sort of probably foundation of a mindset that you can then build off as you get older. And it certainly has helped me. I mean, I didn't start my business with any money. I started it with nothing. I could only afford an iPad and a little keyboard. And I was working at one of the biggest international drinks companies in the world at the time. And when I realized the timings were 9 till 5 in the office, that gave me loads of extra time either side of that to start setting up my business. So I used all my time very wisely. And
That's
it's
side hustle.
a side hustle, yeah,
I'm very.
absolutely.
I love that phrase. I can't remember who coined it, but and that's what I did. I was working for a consultancy, exactly the same thing, and I was very clear about it. I said, I don't know when, but it won't be this year. Probably 2 or 3 years from now. But I'm going to write a book. I'm going to get a website up. It's not going to mean anything, but I actually want to get it going so it's got momentum. And
Yes.
actually, sometimes you have to do it a little bit more covertly, but I think there is something about that. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
don't walk out on Friday and then start on Monday, because that's going to be a bit brutal.
Yeah, I think the thing is, time is something that we all have in equal measures. So it's trying to figure out where you put your time, where you spend it, how you approach it. It's a hard thing to manage because time does just, literally disappears, and you can easily get through your day having just potted around, and you wonder sometimes how you fit it all in. But I think that's why, you need to be quite meticulous and be very organized and planned in everything you're doing. And I think that does help lead to more success.
Yeah, I mean, I love the nature of this is we're not necessarily going through a set list of questions. We're jumping as we hear things, but I've got a whiteboard over there. I've got a whiteboard over here.
Got lists everywhere.
I'm making notes here, and actually, I think there is something about that lists, and not lists for the sake of lists, but actually. Somebody once said this to me, and it stuck with me, and I do it now, which is look at all the stuff you've got to do.
Yeah.
He said, there's two ways of looking at it. Which one takes you nearer the goal? So for me, if it's making money, which one, if you've got to do some design, write a pitch, send an invoice, whatever, which one is the nearest to bringing money in?
Yes.
And always do that one first.
But it's so
Which I
easy
thought
to
was quite
procrastinate,
interesting.
though, isn't it? Like procrastination and especially when you're trying to run something on your own and you're starting up, you are on your own ultimately, and even when you build a business and you've got more people working for you, it's still quite a lonely place to be. And you have to be so motivated, even when you've got the list, to complete the list. And I often find I can procrastinate about stuff and then I do it and it's taken me 5 minutes. And I could have, in my head, I'm like, it's going to take weeks or it's going to take all day. I'm never going to get it done. And yeah, I think that's probably one of my worst habits is trying to break that feeling because it's, as you know, there's always stuff to do.
Well, you said discipline earlier, and I mentioned this literally on a podcast last week. I've said it sometimes. Some things stick with me. If I do a few recordings in the week, everybody gets to hear it 3 or 4 times. But it is this idea of discipline and the discipline of leaning into the stuff that you don't want to do. And for me, every time I look at the things, I actually prioritise my activity, yes, by what is nearer to the goal, but actually, which of those things do I not want to do? And those things go to the top of the list
That's
because they're
good.
normally indicative of the things that need to get done,
Yeah,
as opposed to the things that I'd like to do. And
that's very
that
good.
works really well for me. List, which are the important ones? Fine. Oh, I don't want to do any of those three. Right, those are the three I'm doing.
Yes.
Right, and which of those three do I at least want to do? Right, I'm doing that one first, like admin or sending it.
Yeah.
Ugh, I hate
Yeah.
it. So I
Yeah.
do every day, that gets done first. And the freedom of that,
Yeah.
actually, is quite fascinating. Then you don't sit with the rest of the day with that monkey on your back.
Yeah.
You've done it.
Yeah,
So I
especially
don't
when
know
it
that.
comes to admin, nobody enjoys that. But it is a process, and I do think that you have to draw attention to it if you're going to start a business, and you have to put all these things that seem really simple, and they're things often people don't talk about. People
Yes.
are much more inclined these days to talk about how to get rich quick. They're much more inclined to talk about how everybody should become an entrepreneur, which I don't agree with. You know, everyone has to make their own way, and working for yourself is not everybody's way, and that's okay. It might be that you can get more organized in your own job, and actually that potentially could help you earn more. You don't necessarily need to be always side hustling or always jumping ship, because I think there's so much information out there these days, especially since I started. Nobody was freelancing, never mind setting up businesses, and now everybody's kind of doing it. And I think people are excited and want to do it. And I think the internet definitely feeds a lot of it. But the reality is you are making lists. You are procrastinating. You have to self-start. And it is a very difficult place to be. The bread and butter of it is hard. And nobody is ever going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And if you don't go through those pain processes, and it is painful to do it all yourself, then you'll never learn and never get better. But it's definitely not easy.
I'm fascinated by this, Francesca, and it'll lead us into, lots of other little conversations. However, so I do leadership development coaching, and the world is flooded with coaches.
Yeah.
Flooded. Every single person wants to be a coach, and of course, all social media is, you can work from Bali with your laptop and make 100,000 a year working 2 days a week. Well, you can't.
No, where do I sign up?
And that's, and it's just that, write a book, become a thought leader. And of course, guess what I'll help you do? And once you're a thought leader, people will just gravitate. No, they won't. It's just because your book's probably bullshit.
Yes.
And even if it's great, do you think Simon Sinek's book's not going to sell as many as yours?
Yeah.
There's already flooded. There's already a load of people out there. So actually, this dream, this aspiration, and it hooks people in. And it's not even coaching, it's just any level. Own your own pub, own your own restaurant, have your own, but actually understand that it's brutal.
It is, yes. And I think like lots of people as well, when they first start out, have a tendency to maybe tell everybody else in their network or their family or friends what they're going to do, and they run all the ideas past everybody. And I think that's something else that people need to be very careful about, because often you end up becoming influenced then by others, and that may prohibit you from actually doing. And you become that person who talks about it for 2 years, 3-4 years, and never actually doing it, because the reality is somebody's put a little bit of doubt in your mind, and making that leap is scary. I would always encourage anyone to sort of make the leap if they've got an itch to do it, because I do think that the other side of it is actually amazing. And I think I'm now completely unemployable as a result. I've always
it's remarkable that you said that. Somebody actually said to me, "You are now fundamentally unemployable."
Yeah,
because
nobody would employ me.
No, because now the way that you are is, you'd either have to be the CEO of the thing, which is,
not gonna happen.
No, because by definition now you can't, you don't fit into that space anymore. So I think that's absolutely hilarious. So, in the context of and this is a separate conversation for entrepreneurial startups that I think we might have a side hustle on podcast, which I think we could talk about that and help people with dramatically. I can literally speak for days on the topic of, I think you think that's a good idea, but let me tell you, dot. I'm fascinated by even simple things like, actually just going completely off track. I've got about 60 LinkedIn recommendations.
Yeah.
Because X amount of years ago, I started asking people for LinkedIn recommendations, and the amount of peers that I have that don't have any. Yeah. Because they just, again, they go, well, and they find it awkward to ask, or I go, well, it's not about being awkward to ask. You've got to. Because actually, when your credibility in 5 years, when you want to go to that more senior level, you go, listen, I'm going to tell you I'm awesome. Have a look at look at the names. But actually, that strategic thinking, that willingness to think 3 years ahead, that courage to go, okay, do you know what? Was it a good? Then would you mind writing us a testimonial on Google or whatever the heck it is that you get, whatever it is? I think one of the biggest things for the entrepreneur is some people are just inherently courageous in all their actions for whatever DNA or upbringing they've had. And then for others, you're going to have to find the courage to move and do things that you don't like, because if you can't go there, I wouldn't ring somebody, the website will do the work. Well, it won't. You know,
No.
it's that you're going to
Yeah.
have to
I set up social media
grow.
and now all the money is going to come rolling in when everyone sees it. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't sadly work like that. And I have to say, like when I started out with my iPad, I remember I was living in a rented flat down in Dalston in Hackney, and I woke up and I just thought, what on day one? And I just thought, what the hell do I do? I actually took myself to the pub, which was the only thing I think I could. There's nothing. I didn't know what. Nobody. There weren't cafes where people would do. I completely at a loss. No one's nobody. You forget when you work in a big corporate environment. You have time to like chat, and your days will go quickly sometimes because you maybe go and make a coffee and you've spent half an hour gossiping with somebody, and now you've got all this time on your hands. And I had to go and find clients, and I started sort of my self-development journey at that point really. And I remember I had all these post-it notes all around my bedroom, motivational. Everything I could think of was written on across the walls, essentially. Just so at every point and every turn, I was starting to feed myself really strong messaging, because I worked out very early that without a strong mindset, you just can't do the journey. It doesn't matter how good your idea is, doesn't matter whatever you've got. If you don't have the mindset, you will get crushed. It's too.
Well, you've got to be your own support group, haven't you? You're your own counsel, your own support group, your own cheerleader.
Yeah,
You know, those things may come in time
yeah,
as part of a network or an organisation, but to start, it's you.
yeah. And
You
you'll
know,
find as the journey goes on, it is still you.
yeah. Well, there is
You
that.
know, that's the
Yeah,
hard. That's the part of the journey that
yeah.
people forget to tell you. There's no end goal on the journey. You just keep learning, and nobody tells you that you're doing a good job. Nobody is going to say this is. It's not. You have to find it all within yourself, because you've put yourself in a different camp now. And you know
Yeah.
you can get scrutinized more because you are just out there doing stuff. People then, you might find as well, people around you get jealous because they wish
And
they
you might get jealous as well, actually. That's
people's
that.
paychecks. Yeah.
Well, somebody said this phrase to me for another topic completely, which was comparison is the thief of joy. And you do need to look at what other people are doing to make sure that you're not missing a beat. But if you're collecting data, that's one thing. But if you're comparing, and if I look at other exec coaches and go, oh my God, he
Yeah.
seems more popular, or she seems to be getting, then it's like when people say, how many people listen to the podcast? I don't know. I don't look.
Matter.
We got put in the top 3 for an award thing the other day, and I went, brilliant. So, how many people listen? I've no idea. Because if I start looking, then I'm going to compare, then I'm
Become
going to get
obsessed.
sucked in, then
Yeah.
I'm going to be disappointed that awesome podcast that I loved having with you, maybe
Yeah.
it didn't get as many as I want. So actually, do you know what?
That's really smart that you do that, though, because it is hard. That's a really strong like discipline that you have, because I've become obsessed. A part of doing the work and doing what I do become obsessed with everything.
But you also have to validate it to others, which is slightly
Yeah.
different. I only have to validate it to myself. So
Yeah.
that's a slightly different thing.
I know, but I mean, I can't tell you the amount of side hustles I've started, even when I have my own business. You know what I mean? I'm constantly,
I was side hustling my side hustle.
oh yeah, I'm constantly moving forward in lots of different ways. Unfortunately, once you scratch that itch, it's hard, and that's what entrepreneurs or founders do struggle with, is how often they go off in different directions. Because once you start something, you suddenly keep seeing little problems, and you think, oh, I could just solve that, and if I just do this, I could,
Yeah.
you know.
So brilliant. I mean, oh blimey. So let's get into the job. The job. Sorry. The job of running the organisations that you do have. Give a sense of just what small and mighty global talent. What's their point in the market, and what is it that people would pay attention to them for? Why would they go, that's why I'd want to know about that or understand what they do?
Yeah. So where we started, 29 London is sort of the core PR company. And, I'd say we're very fortunate to work with, big brands like Pims, and we do Wimbledon. We work across a lot of Cannes Film Festival, Monaco Grand Prix. We work across all the really sexy, shiny events that people get excited about. We work across a lot of drinks companies and help them to promote. So I think the thing is, the industry has changed. Ultimately, PR has changed huge amounts, and we're going to see another massive change thanks to AI that will shift things in our industry a lot. I think my industry and what we love to do is storytell. It's really important that, we understand how brands work and how they operate, how they speak to their customers, and where those channels are. And as we all know now, because of social media, the channels of which we can communicate are almost endless. I mean, there's huge amounts of ways and paths to speak. So, our job is really to help brands sort of bring their messaging to life. And I have to say, like, my sort of AI predictions, especially in our industry, I think we're going to see a lot more in-person events than ever. I think AI is going to impact the PR industry a lot. Without a shadow of a doubt, we're already seeing it. There's so much that can be automated with clients. So a lot of what we do as well, we used to do it pre-COVID.
When you say in-person events, you mean the person or
Like
people
live.
of a level turning up and having other people having physical contact?
Yeah, exactly. So so when we have launch parties, and if we're launching a new drinks brand or a new wellness brand, so yes, trying to getting customers, I guess, as well in front of the brands more, rather than just relying on social, which I think brands are struggling to see as much, ROI on social media and content than previously, because it's becoming so saturated.
So is this there's a way of doing something, and then the new shiny thing comes along and everybody, it's like watching kids play football, right? Adults stay in their position, but the kids all just follow the ball.
Everywhere, yeah.
Right. And you can kind of maybe look at them. I look at the same thing with coaching and all that kind of stuff and go, yeah, that's the new psychometric, or that's the new book. And I just watch everybody run after it. And then I see certain people just hold back and go, well, let's just see where that goes. It's not that we won't do it. It's not that we won't read it, but let's not, because actually what you realise is that some people are fad-led. There is a FOMO thing going on.
Yeah.
And actually probably their maturity in talking to their senior teams is, oh yeah, we're on it, which is a very junior mindset, as opposed to, well, let's look at where that's going to go.
Yeah.
And actually the ability to hold space, be strategic, and go, it's not that we won't factor it in, but I don't necessarily think we need to put everything, etc. So I wonder if you see a level, well, it's rhetorical because every industry's got its maturity, but I'd love you to talk about maybe where you think you have the maturity and the insight and maybe the strategy that maybe you recognise that others don't.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, the industry, unfortunately for PR and marketing, it is the first thing to get cut when we're in a recession. Classically.
See, I always think it's coaching.
Yeah, well, maybe we're in the same boat. It's seen as a luxury in that sense, and I have to just to explain what sort of PR is in that sense. PR is earned media, so advertising is one form of marketing where obviously you're paying to put a billboard up, put an advert in a magazine, which sounds a bit old school now, but pay for social media advertising. We all get served adverts, right? So that's advertorial. We don't get involved in that part. Our part is very interesting because we have to help brands tell their story, and we're not paying the publications or the influencers necessarily to be posting about the brand. So it's earned, and I think it is the part that does get cut, but obviously, in my opinion, it shouldn't get cut because it's the cheapest, easiest way for brands to keep their names out there without spending huge amounts in advertising where they're competing against all their competitors for space. And, the cost per clicks now, it's expensive, and they're not necessarily seeing wild returns on it. In terms
And
of...
can you trust it as well? Because you can go and buy, I know I can go and buy TikTok likes, I can go and buy YouTube followers. I can go and buy 1 million YouTube followers tomorrow.
Yes.
For literally next to nothing. I mean, I know they're useless and I know it'll damage it, but actually, in some respects, I think there are people out there that offer a service that they'll help you with your marketing, will increase by A, B, and C. And what they're doing is they're back channeling stuff in to go, look, we're increasing your clicks. And actually, you're giving us £1,000. We're spending £100 on actually buying you and we're tricking you. Not all, but I know it happens because I can feel it happening to me, and I'm going, no, I can see exactly what you're doing, mate. There's no validity to those. So I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on.
Oh, crikey, absolutely. And I think, we work in with celebrities and influencers a lot. And it's competitive. It's hard out there for them to even grow their audience. And you can see who buys and who, isn't necessarily authentic. And I guess that's the kind of key word with everything that we do these days. It's got to have authenticity behind it because social media is so dominant. It's very hard, like you say, for people to hide behind fake followers. And I've seen influencers when sort of Instagram was starting, buying loads of followers, and subsequently they've had a strategy put behind them and they've gained real followers off the back of it. And they're some of the most successful influencers out there now, and they started out with.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes,
fake it till you make it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Well,
but also you got 10 million followers, but 3 comments on your clip.
3 comments.
How's that
written in other languges that you can't read.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not an expert here, but I think I know what's going on.
You can see why there's kids now want to grow up and become influencers. That's a thing, I think the way we operate is always with a human touch. So it's our industry is very people to people. You've got to be very good with people. I think that's sort of one of the big things of how we've lasted. I'd say, going back to your point earlier about sort of standing back and not following the crowds wherever they're sort of going, is something I've been very good at doing. I let things kind of play out in front of me first. We are a small business, but we do work for the biggest brands in the world. And very lucky to do so. But that's only because of our relationships, which is, I think, number one and the most important thing across all businesses.
So this is bespoke tailoring. This is Savile Row. This is, don't come for us if you want off the shelf.
Yes.
We will say, as your tailor, that doesn't suit you. Actually, this would look better on you.
Yes,
and
exactly.
We've been told, well, listen, let me just show you. You're willing to operate as, and I use this analogy a lot, and tell me if it rings true with you. If you've ever seen a Godfather film, you've got, Marlon Brando being the Godfather, Robert Duvall, who's the consigliere, the one who can offer counsel without having a bullet put in his head. and that capacity to be of counsel rather than just a service provider.
Yes.
So that feels as if I go for that, and I feel that you are very much.
Yes.
It's not just the processes we bring; it's the who we are bringing it.
Who we are, exactly. And I think we get to a point now as the business goes on and you get more experience. You can talk yourself out of work as well these days. You've got to find the right clients. I definitely have a tendency of just sort of taking on pretty much anything, and I can, turn something around. But with experience, you start to push back on that yourself. It's important because when you do find the right clients and you gel, it's amazing what happens. But these things takes time to nurture, and I think for us, it's really important to get some lovely clients under your belt, which we have, and people that you get on with. Ultimately, we are all just humans trying to navigate ourselves in this world, and everybody wants to do the best job that they can. I've come across some real tyrants in my sort of tenure, the last 10 years, and trying to suss who those out before you start working with them is quite an important skill.
It's fascinating because the clients I have, generally speaking, when I started off, I'd take any work you had. I didn't care what it was, as long as it wasn't illegal. And even then I might have considered it. But the point is, And then now I've got brilliant clients where I've been working with them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And there's been a change in one of my clients, and some new people have come in. And it's so lacking in humanity that I'm going to walk away from it.
Yeah, it's brave.
And that's okay. That's the privilege of somebody that isn't desperate for the money. Granted,
Yes.
you know, if you'd have met me when I was 25, I'd have gone, well, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there is a point of actually, and I think what I'm hearing with you is as well, which is I don't think my energy is going to be right. I think I'm always going to be feeling a little bit, well, I'm doing it, but I don't, when the phone goes.
Yeah.
There's a lady called Kaylee from Winvic. If you listen to this, Kaylee, when the phone goes, I eagerly answer it. Not because I think there's work, because I'm going, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I love speaking to her.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to ring her up this afternoon and go, because we're not doing some work, it's a little bit like, we haven't spoken for ages, how you doing? I miss speaking to her.
Ah.
But I think that's key, isn't it? And they know that, you know that.
Yeah.
And then these people go, you want me to be a service provider. You want me to just do as I'm told. And of course I will do as I'm told in the context of the provision. But it can't be like that anymore. And do you think you get to that level where you go, I'm looking for my tribe?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you work and operate so much better once you find that. And I think sort of what you're touching on a little bit there is kind of looking at how you go over and above, just looking at work as a cash cow, like say, like if I do this, I just extract the money and then off you go. And actually that doesn't work. You've got to have relationships. You've got to entertain. I mean, I'm probably old school in this because I do like to be in front of people. I think a lot of people don't do that, especially I think the younger generations coming up in sort of our industries, they're very much sitting behind desks and on Zoom calls still. And that's the kind of opposite of what our industry is about. It's about people, you know, making great connections and then knowing that you've got that person in your back pocket that you need them for something, or, you know, they've got you in your back pocket, whatever, but you've got those relationships there. And I'm a big believer, and I always have been, you know, I always entertain, sort of taking people out for breakfast, lunches, dinners, drinks.
Well, you say entertain, but you just mean humanity and being a bit human and just having social interaction. I mean, we call it this. It's entertainment for the accountant.
Yeah.
But actually, I just want to say hi and have a cup of tea with you.
Love a cuppa. Yeah, well, you know, I'm very, you know, my family also work in my business. So, you know, very family orientated person. And I think, you know, have strong values in that area. So not everyone likes it. People like to have the distance. You know, some people like to just be online.
Yeah, exactly.
Just trying to find the people who want to have a chat over a cup of tea.
So let's just stick with 29 London for a minute. What is it that, you know, again, I think it's never about saying you're the best. It's about, you know, if there's an upper quartile of good, and the reason I'm in it is because, right? You know, if somebody said, are you the best coach in the world? I go, God, I wouldn't want to say that. But I think if there's a group of good ones, I think I'm in it. You know, it's very dangerous to say anything else than that. So for you as an organisation, it's not so much what sets you apart, and maybe there is that, but what makes it that you're in that upper quartile of, yeah, we may not be a global, you know, entity strident, you know, through all organisations, but those that do work with us, you know, what they're getting, and I think I'm hearing that personal touch, that insight. But is that in terms of your processes, your systems, the way that you come at it? You know, that kind of, because I know just organising a Sunday lunch can be complicated. So the dynamics, because the competence has to be there, doesn't it? You could be awesome, and having a cup of tea with you is a beautiful thing.
You've got
to be good at it.
You've got to be good at it. And if we go back, you know, from the beginning and look at your childhood, look at where you've come from. Like I come from a huge family. I've got 30 odd cousins. So being sociable, being personable, being organised, knowing how to put something together, you know, especially in our industry, we do a lot of events. So, you know, that some of those foundations were already in place. What I've done is be able to perfect them and put them into the brands that we work with. And I think one thing that we're very passionate about is just how brands work. I think personally, I'm very interested in the mechanisms of a brand, product creation, communication, storytelling, and piecing that together. And then when you see it in the press, you know, it's exciting because you've made that happen. for your clients. And I think really getting under the skin of brands is something I love to do. And a lot of people who work in our industry do often want to go and create their own brands as a result of doing that. It's not something I necessarily will see myself doing, but my sister had her own brand, so we helped launch that for her.
So when you say have your own brand,
Yeah.
each organisation, I mean, 29 it is a brand, right? But
Yeah,
when you
so
say make a brand, what's the differential
coming at
there
it
for
from
you?
a product perspective. Yeah, so whether it's a drinks product, whether it's in the drinks in, health, wellness, those sort of, when I say brand, I'm thinking probably more product, consumer, lifestyle, product led. Yeah. But yes, you are a brand. And as a business, I think other people forget that outside of maybe our industry. So I don't know if you work in construction or something, you are, you can still create a brand from that. You can still have your key messages. You can still have your brand values. You can still have your brand mission. You can still develop it and execute as a brand.
So when you have an organisation that wants to run an event, be it multiple events or whatever, they often will have their own brand identity and their own narrative around a product that they've created or whatever that might be. So is it for you to go to understand what is that narrative what does this event have to align to? What does it have to reinforce? What does it have to magnify? Or is it actually, no, this event may have its own narrative?
Yeah.
And I'd like to probably understand, how do you kind of get to that of understand? Is that just you get a brief, but what do you need to understand for you to know that you understand it?
Yeah. And not everybody always understands it. And
There is
there's all
that.
sorts of, there is that. And I think, this is where relationships come in, because when you work into a big brand team, with lots of other people with different opinions, that's the hard thing, because it's developing a brand narrative is the key part, and understanding, for me, we need to understand objectives, and trying to develop a strategy around that and start to peel away the onion, as it were, for what that is and what that looks like for a brand. And I think brands for me are just like people. You have different personalities. You got some people that like to wear different clothes or behave differently, speak differently, and brands are the same in that capacity. How they respond. What's their tone of voice? What is it? Who is their customer? What do they look like? What's their colors of their font? What content style are they putting out? I mean, you could go into dissect a brand, even a brand you love. An obvious one is Apple. Why do you love that brand? And for somebody who feels like, maybe who is listening, who maybe doesn't understand brand, just look across your own sort of life. Like, what are you wearing? What brands are you conversing with on without realizing it usually, because it's very subconscious, and kind of go through that process yourself. Look at Apple as an example. Like, why, what is it that you love about it? Is it the simplicity? Is it the clean lines? Is it the design? Is it the adverts? Is it the creative?
Why do people hate it?
Why do people hate it? Yeah.
Because everything, it's like the greatest, I think Coldplay are one of the greatest bands in the world. It
Which
doesn't
I
matter.
don't.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter how brilliant it is. Like, some people go,
Yeah.
like, somebody took me to the ballet once, and afterwards they went, what did you think? I was absolutely brilliant. Right, do you want to go again? Oh, God, no, I don't want to ever go again. I recognise it's brilliant, but I hated it.
Yeah.
So you can't be all things to all people. There is a brand narrative to it. But are you sensitive to the fact that you want to be the enhancer and not the detractor of the thing? Is it the Dylan Mulvaney thing with the beer, for sort of that, anything, just one thing, that Jaguar advert, that it just takes one. It's only a single event in a massive narrative. But if the world reacts badly to it, or our event, the wrong photo's taken or the wrong video clip goes out,
Yes.
we could have process-wise done a fantastic event, but it could be a massive enhancer. But there's a danger now that probably didn't exist 10 years ago or pre-internet,
exactly.
because it wouldn't shoot off like a rabbit out the hush. You know?
Yeah, and
So I'm fascinated by that.
we have to deal with all of these problems a lot, like, so for instance, in the other business where we focus purely on celebrities and talent, so we get,
Global Talent Network Group.
yeah, that's correct. So when we have people who read the Daily Mail, which is most people, and they see, the side, but we call it the sidebar of shame, but every client wants to be on that because of the eyeballs are so high. So, a lot of those celeb stuff that we're involved in, people don't really realize when you've got a celebrity, walking out of a restaurant, quite often we may be part of that. And everything is very deliberate. Things don't just appear in the press. You have PR teams, and obviously, like me, all around the world doing similar jobs and trying to get that shot. So when you've got, for instance, Bella Hadid or Sienna Miller walking along the road wearing a rain mac or something, that rain mac has been put on by people, I work with. So everything is very deliberate. Nothing is by accident. And every brand is obviously, always trying to cash in on what they can. And all of that strategy, just looks so effortless in a way when on the delivery, but the bits behind the scenes to get that shot and to get that certain sort of look and feel is huge amounts of work. And sometimes, you can't believe it's your job really, because it sometimes doesn't seem real. But,
So AI comes into this in a way where I look at, say, films at the moment, Marvel films and stuff like that, and the behaviour, the political perspectives of some of the actors are now infecting whether or not people are turning up to watch the films.
Yeah.
So it used to be back in the day, you'd do the acting, you wouldn't talk about stuff like that.
No.
So it doesn't matter what your political sort of bent is, who cares? But the reality is 50% don't like it. So it doesn't matter which one you are, 50% don't like it. And we live in it used to be I could be on a train, you and I would have a disagreement about something politically, but we'd go, oh, have a good journey. Now, you've got to be very careful what you say to people, because people lose their goddamn minds. So It's gone very black and white. So that dynamic has changed. And I wonder, because when I look at AI and all over TikTok at the moment, there's this one with the Yeti or the Sasquatch, I don't know if you've seen it, but it looks like, it's like, I know it's AI, because clearly Yetis don't talk and drink beer. I get it. But the point is, it's bloody brilliant. And we're only in the infancy of it. And they're safe with that. It's not going to do anything weird.
Yeah.
Right. And I wonder if these, having an event where people turn up, or creating the visual images of an event that never happened.
Yeah, that's just mind blowing.
It's not that far away, is it? As in, no. and then some people will love that, because there are accounts for social media influencers where it's an AI.
It's an AI influencer.
It's not even a real person.
No.
And some people will go, I love that. Others will be almost repelled by it. Yeah. So we're going through this very interesting period.
100%, and we're all going to get scooped up in this. It's not just the VIPs looking out for and the influencers looking out for their image rights. That's one thing we talk a lot about in the business, is image rights. How you protect image rights, what does that look like? And with the rise of AI and celebrities now being sort of cloned online, like, where does that leave everybody with their own rights? Who do you sort of sue if you had to sue somebody for using it's a very complex world we're stepping into. And I think not only people in the public eye, but I think we all now need to be asking more questions about our own rights to our own images, and what does that look like. And that ends up, because we cover sort of communication, these are questions that we do ask in the business a lot, because we're dealing with people, we're dealing with brands, and everything we're doing is publicly facing.
Are you connecting brands to people? Are you the jigsaw putter togetherer, which is clearly science?
Sometimes, yeah.
And it's where you're going. Is it a marketing team that go, this is what we want, we've already made the connections, now make the event happen? Or are you actually partly advisory in that context as well?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we do sponsorship deals. So we'll bring brands together and bring stuff to brands to kind of put in front of them. So we launched The Devil Wears Prada that was in the theatres in London. We just did a great sort of sponsorship deal with one of our wine brands, which was absolutely fantastic, and that ended up becoming an in-store activity. So it fed through the whole sort of marketing mix, and we get involved. I think the thing is the way we sort of operate, because we're small, we get to have more eyes across the whole marketing mix to help, clients not be so terrified, especially smaller businesses that are wanting to pack a punch, but they don't have huge budgets. You've got to kind of figure out, well, where do you place your bet, essentially? What's going to give you biggest bang for your buck? Because marketing is so, I don't know, it's so vast. We've got.
Well, it's an element of a roulette wheel, isn't it? There's many places you could put your money.
Yes.
But in truth, it could. There's, as you say, it is best bet. There are no promises here.
No, and that's what people struggle with. Some not experienced businesses, but middle-level businesses and businesses who are trying to do more. They struggle with really understanding PR because, whilst you have to pay a monthly fee, like everything that PR does build over time and adds huge amounts of value. But the way people's brains work, they often just, if an SEO guy called them up and said, if you pay me $5,000 a month, I'm going to get you
search engine optimization. If you're listening and don't know, but no, don't know.
But then you've got pay me $5,000 a month, and I will get you, 1,000 visits to your websites, and get all these clicks. Somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing says, you know what, that makes more sense, because when you look at PR, if you paid PR, a PR company £5,000 a month, you won't get 1,000 clicks. Okay. It's not how it works. However, when the industry, the SEO guy is putting your website all over the place in no valuable, marketing spots. PR is going to put you right in front of the customer. So it might cost you 5,000 to get that one hit, but that's going to be directly where you need the hit. And
so it's this long game and short game. Is this
strategy?
You've got a hit of a launch and something.
Yeah.
It's got to have an immediate reaction versus
PR.
Actually you need to be in the public space. People need to become familiar with it. It needs to be something that
time.
Actually...
That's the problem. SEO, search engine optimization is, I think it's changing actually now. The rise of AI and everything else is coming up and moving things out of the way. But, so many brands would come to, especially founders come to me and say, we've already spent X amount of money, and it's incredible how people don't do their research. This is
trust.
What's that?
This is trust, isn't it? Because I'm now in a position where I would go, before I look behind the curtain, if you offered me clicks, I'd go, right, and I presume you have integrity. But now I don't know if you do, not you personally, clearly, anybody else. I would go, are you an integrity-led search engine optimization company where it will be genuine, or are you going to ask me to pay £5,000 and then you spend £1,000 on sending clicks to my site and then validate that you've done it? Because I don't know enough.
Paperwork, and then you'll say, but I've got no sales. And then
bingo. Yeah, well, that's not us then, is it? That's your product, and that's your, maybe if you did even more. So actually, you've got to, this really then comes down to, I've got to look at Francesca and go, not only, it's not what you're saying and what you're offering. I have to look at your client list and go, well, those people operate at a level, there has to be a credibility by association piece here, because those people would not be spending this time or this money with this individual.
Yeah.
And I have to spend time with you and go, I like the cut of her jib. I trust her. I trust the mechanism. I can see that she's not just trying to sell to me. She's trying to make it more than just taking my money. She has insight. She has wisdom. She cares. She would invest in me more than probably I'm paying for.
Yes.
That feels as if that's the deal.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think you do have to be, your business does need to be at a level to receive PR, because PR does, it doesn't necessarily, traditionally PR has no direct correlation to sales, and people struggle with that. Okay, and I
Like
understand.
somebody's eye twitch somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I can see why, but it's not the purpose of it. It's the purpose is for brand awareness. Okay, it's to make sure your brand or your business is front of mind all the time. But PR can be very useful, I think, for smaller companies, especially who are operating within different regions. So if you're more regionally based, I don't know if you're a plumber or something, like, I think, stuff like that, PR is really, really, really fruitful. And so is potentially SEO if you get a good search engine optimization company that can really locate,
And there's a
target.
difference between trying to be the plumber in your 20-mile radius,
Yeah,
where if you live in Bromsgrove in the West Midlands and it's plumbing services Bromsgrove and you've got that as a domain, plumbing services bromsgrove.com, the chances are you'll be, but if you try to be national, now it's a whole different,
all different.
it's a whole different thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
all different
fascinating,
things.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, listen, I think I've said this on, out of the 140 odd podcasts, not all of them, but about 120 of them I've said, with a bottle of wine and a pizza, I could keep going for the next 4 or 5 hours. And you'd have to
Yeah, the
eventually go,
times just
I've got a
flew.
job to do, guy. I've got to go.
Yeah.
You said an hour. What the hell are we still doing?
Yeah.
So this has been great because, again, this is, I'll put how to contact you. And if somebody does want to reach out to you, Francesca, if somebody says, because this isn't about, this was never about you going, hey, come and work with me. I just wanted to talk to you. You've been gracious enough to come on. But if somebody listens to this and goes, that's the kind of character I would like to talk to, where do they reach out?
Well, on my website,
Yeah.
29-london.com, or the globaltalentnetworkgroup.com, or I'm on Instagram, like
Bingo.
everybody. You can message me directly.
And what's your Instagram?
It's Francesca D29.
Okay, well, we'll put
We'll
that
link
stuff
it in.
in there as well. Okay. So listen, just thank you. I love this. It was just fun. It was easy.
Yeah.
And I always find that if you're speaking to somebody that knows what they're talking about, it's easy,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't have to be scripted. You can just chat away. When I'm talking to somebody that I go, oh, you'd like to operate in this space, but you clearly don't know a lot about it,
Yeah.
that's always painful. But when I've got somebody who knows their shizzle, we just bounce around because you're not fearful of any of the topics. You don't, and I can see straight away that and that's why I wanted you on the podcast. So listen, awesome. You've been an absolute rock star. Thank you so much for coming on. Stay on for a few minutes just to make sure everything uploads. But other than that, you've been an absolute joy.
Well, thank you, Guy. I really appreciate it. And you do an amazing job. So keep coaching, because we need good coaches like you.
We'll figure it out. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
That's it. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe so you don't miss out. Please tell other people, help spread the word. Interested in working with me? Go to livingbrave.com, hop onto LinkedIn, Guy Bloom, and of course, even buy the book, Living Brave Leadership, at amazon.com. Take care.